For years, California symbolized the American dream. Sunny weather, massive career opportunities, world-class universities, tech innovation, ocean views. But today, the conversation around California sounds very different. Headlines talk about people leaving, housing prices breaking records, insurance companies pulling out of entire regions, water shortages, wildfire risk, and a cost of living that feels impossible for the average American household. And the numbers behind those headlines are difficult to ignore. Over the past few years, California has experienced one of the largest population shifts in modern state history. Millions of residents have relocated to states like Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and Florida, places promising cheaper homes, lower taxes, and fewer financial pressures. At the same time, housing affordability in California has reached levels that many economists now describe as structurally unsustainable. The median home price in the state is now several times higher than the national average. In many major cities, buying a home requires household incomes well into six figures. Even renting has become increasingly difficult. In cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, the average rent for a modest apartment can rival the mortgage payment on a house in many other states. But here's the part of the story that rarely gets discussed. Despite the high costs, the migration trends, and the constant headlines about people leaving, California is still one of the most desirable places to live in the United States. Not every city is struggling. Not every community is losing residents. In fact, several parts of the state are quietly thriving. Some regions are attracting new tech investment. Others are benefiting from remote work trends that allow professionals to leave expensive coastal cities while staying inside California. And some smaller cities are emerging as balanced alternatives, places where housing, lifestyle, and economic opportunity still align. So the real question isn't whether California is livable. The real question is where in California it's still possible to build a stable life. Because the truth is that California has become a state of extremes. Some areas face rising crime, infrastructure strain, housing shortages, and economic uncertainty. Other communities continue to experience steady growth, strong school systems, and relatively stable housing markets. And the gap between these places is widening every year. Understanding that gap is critical, especially for anyone thinking about moving to California in 2026, or for families who already live in the state and are quietly asking a difficult question. Is there still a place here where the numbers make sense? Because living in California today is no longer just about scenery or lifestyle. It's about economic risk management, housing affordability, insurance availability, infrastructure reliability, and increasingly, climate stability. Wildfire zones are expanding in some regions, water supply pressures are growing across parts of the state, and insurance premiums in high-risk areas have increased dramatically. These pressures are reshaping where people choose to live. They're also reshaping where investment is flowing. And that's why the conversation about the best places to live in California has changed. 10 years ago, the answer might have focused mostly on coastal cities with high-paying tech jobs. Today, people are asking very different questions. Where is housing still relatively stable? Where are schools strong enough to support families? Where can people find jobs without paying extreme housing costs? And perhaps most importantly, which communities are positioned to remain stable over the next decade? Because California's future will likely look different from its past. The rise of remote work is already shifting where professionals choose to live. Smaller cities are becoming more attractive. Suburban areas with strong infrastructure are seeing renewed interest. Meanwhile, some of the most famous urban centers are struggling to adapt to changing economic patterns. Office vacancies remain high in several downtown areas. Retail districts in some major cities are still recovering from pandemic-era closures, and housing development continues to lag behind demand. All of these factors create a complex map of opportunity and risk. Some cities are becoming magnets for growth. Others are losing population as residents search for more affordable alternatives. And within this landscape, a handful of communities stand out. These are places where the balance still works, places where jobs, schools, safety, housing, and quality of life create a combination that remains attractive even in one of the most expensive states in the country. But none of them are perfect. Every city on this list faces challenges. Some struggle with rising housing prices, others deal with climate concerns or infrastructure pressure, and even the strongest local economies are not immune to broader shifts happening across the United States. That's why understanding the full picture matters, because when people talk about the best places to live, they often focus only on lifestyle, beautiful weather, good restaurants, nice neighborhoods. But the deeper story is usually about something much more practical: economic stability, long-term housing viability, and the ability to build a future without constant financial strain. So with that context in mind, we can start looking at the communities that still manage to balance opportunity and livability in 2026, places where the numbers, at least for now, still work. And the first city on this list reflects a broader trend that's quietly reshaping California's population map, a trend where professionals, families, and even retirees are moving away from the most expensive coastal areas and towards cities that offer something increasingly rare in California: space, relative affordability, and a local economy that continues to grow. That shift is already visible in housing demand, migration data, and job creation across several regions of the state. And as we'll see next, the first city on our list has become one of the clearest examples of this transformation.